Hey everyone, Steven here, and I'm shooting this video on a rainy Thursday, 2 weeks after the 2024 election. And if you're watching this video way in the future, one of the things you may remember when you look back at the 2024 election is the involvement of Elon Musk. Now, at least as of shooting this video, Elon Musk is the wealthiest person on the planet by a pretty large margin. And last night at dinner, I was talking to a friend, and he asked me why Elon Musk is the wealthiest person in the world. And I actually had a really quick and very good response to him. And the response is, Elon Musk has more leverage than every other human being on the planet. Now, what is leverage? Leverage means the difference between the inputs and the outputs. Elon Musk has a greater difference or a greater delta between the inputs that he puts in and the outputs that he gets. For example, Elon Musk a couple of years ago was just on his private jet and he all of a sudden decided he wanted to buy Twitter. He texted one person and the whole process of buying Twitter began. That is incredible leverage that very few people on the planet even have. He had an idea in his head. He texted someone. That was his input. And the output was he was able to buy Twitter and everything that has come with that. When it comes to trading, what I see is the majority of traders, before I work with them, they are spending their time on the lowest leverage tasks possible. Meaning that the delta between their inputs and outputs, in my opinion, most of the time, is not even a positive one. The majority of the time, it's something like a negative one. So I want to shoot this video today to talk to you about how to gain leverage when it comes to your trading. And the reason why I say how to gain leverage when it comes to your trading is because I believe after coaching now, I don't even know how many thousands of people I've coached at this point, after seeing people do really well, seeing people make 6 figures in a year, seeing people make 7 figures in a year, also seeing people struggle, is that success in trading really comes down to actually just 3 things. Just 3 things, nothing else. And again, those 3 things, and I'm going to talk about them right now, but those 3 things are items that, again, the average trader does not even pay attention to, even if they're aware of it. And I would argue that whatever time you have to devote to trading, whether it's researching, whether it's after hours, whether it's during the day, whether it's in the morning, whatever it is, I would argue if you would spend your time on these 3 things and nothing else, you would gain so much leverage when it comes to your trading. It would become very difficult for you to not be successful. So what are the 3 highest bits of leverage that I think every trader should really be focusing on? And basically everything else you can basically throw away. The first piece of leverage is the strategy or the system that you're using. Does it come with a built-in mathematical edge? Now, what's a built-in mathematical edge? It's really simple. You take a test of, let's say, 1,000 occurrences of the exact same trade. Now, you don't want to just blindly do this. You have to try to model and resemble the real world. So, for example, you want to include commissions in that test. You want to include slippage on the entry. You want to include slippage on the exit, right? You really want to be able to include all of that information so it's actually realistic. And I would say, you know what your commissions are based on whatever your commissions are for your online broker. But I would definitely add a very large buffer when it comes to slippage on entries and exits. It doesn't mean that in the real world it's going to be that bad, but I would certainly factor that in. So what you do is you take a thesis or you take a strategy that you have purchased or a strategy that you have heard from someone else, and you put it through a real vigorous test of like at least 1,000 occurrences over many different types of market environments. It will have a built-in mathematical edge if you take all the profits, you subtract from those profits all the losses, and then you get a number, and then you subtract from that number the commissions on the entries and the exits, and you subtract from that number the slippage from the entries and the exits. If after that the number is positive, That is good enough for me to be able to say I have some sort of a statistical, mathematical edge. If the trades you are using or following or subscribing to, or the systems you are using do not have that, that means that the market is going to have a mathematical and statistical edge against you, and you will just continuously and consistently lose money. So the question I have for you is, how much time in a given day or whatever time you have to devote to trading, what percentage of that time is spent locating a strategy or a system that has an actual, real, quantifiable, mathematical edge? That's number one. Number two, now when you did that actual test, that test came with very specific rules, like on a Monday at 3:30, I'm going to buy the S&P here, and I'm going to put a profit target here and a stop loss here. Those are very, very, very specific rules. So once you get those rules, to be able to uncover one of these built-in mathematical edge strategies or trades or systems, your goal is, number two, to follow the rules of that system. It's very simple. The benefit of following the rules is twofold. Number one, when we have rules to follow, we reduce our emotional involvement. Number two, when we have rules, and especially if we have rules on top of a system or a strategy that has a built-in mathematical edge, we are able to, hopefully, if you're not curve fitting the test, realize that built-in mathematical edge in the future. So when you're going out there and you're trading or you're researching, right, are you coming up with very specific rules for you to follow? Because with very specific rules, you can make very consistent decisions. And when you make very consistent decisions, those will typically lead to very consistent actions. And when you make very consistent actions, that will lead to very consistent results. So when you're out there trading every day, are you saying, ooh, which way is the wind blowing? Or are you saying, is it 3:30? If it's 3:30, am I buying this? If I buy this, am I putting my stop loss here? Am I putting my profit target here? Right? One is going to give you way more leverage because, again, it reduces the emotional involvement. It also allows you to mimic what got you that mathematical edge in the first place. And again, if you don't do that, you're not just gambling, but again, you are going to have a mathematical edge against you in the market, and you are guaranteed at that point to lose. The final one, or the third highest leverage point that very few traders actually follow, is that strategy that you found that has a built-in mathematical edge and the rules around it to get that mathematical edge to continuously be in your favor. Are you really operating on that and taking advantage of it for the long term? What I see a lot of times is traders will try something once or twice. It doesn't allow them to retire instantly. It doesn't allow them to quit their job after 2 trades. It doesn't work. It doesn't allow you to make $1 million after 2 trades. So you kind of give up. If you have a trade that is a built-in mathematical edge, so I'll show it on the screen right now, but I'm looking at it on my monitor. Here's a trade that we have recently developed. There's 12,500 occurrences of that trade this year. So that's a big enough sample size. It has a 49.6% win rate. So the win rate is basically 50-50. The average winner is $892, and the average loser is negative $766. So when you factor in commissions, you factor in slippage, it comes out to be a positive $57 per trade. Now, just because we've taken all the wins, we subtracted from it all the losses, we subtracted from that the commissions and all the slippage, just because it comes out to a positive number per trade expectancy does not mean that every single one is going to be a winner. Think about blackjack. In blackjack, the house has a 0.43% mathematical edge. That's not very big. You've probably played blackjack before. You've probably had a couple of times when you sat down at the blackjack table and did really well. If that never happened for you, you've probably heard of people making a lot of money playing blackjack, doubling down, splitting cards, having a bunch of blackjacks in a row. You've probably heard of all that happening. But over the long run, every single person on planet Earth, if they play blackjack enough, loses money. Loses money. So if you have a strategy with a built-in mathematical edge, and if you are very clear on what the rules are that to get that edge in the first place, you need to operate that on the long run. Again, blackjack dealers, the casino doesn't care about what happens at 11 o'clock at night. It doesn't care about what happens at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It only cares about dealing the cards. That's all it cares about, because the more it deals the cards, the more money it's going to make. They know that because it's a fact, because there's a built-in mathematical edge when it comes to blackjack. So if you are fortunate enough to find a strategy, and by the way, there's like thousands of them that have these positive expected returns per trade, that have these built-in mathematical edges. And if you are really able to follow the rules to get those mathematical edges to work in your favor, you need to operate on the long run, because again, in the short term, there will be volatility of results. But over the long run, it is much less likely that you will have volatility of results, because you are increasing the number of occurrences on something where you have a built-in mathematical edge. So my question for you is this: if you have an hour a day to devote to trading, how much of that hour is devoted to either finding a method or a strategy that has a built-in mathematical edge, executing on the rules that got you that edge in the first place in the real world so that you can have that edge into the future, and trying to do that trade over and over and over again for the long run? How much of your time, again, if you have an hour a day to trade, how much of that hour is devoted to those three things? My guess is it's pretty small. So if it's not, start to get the leverage in your favor, right? Leverage is the delta, the difference between the inputs and the outputs. Once you find a single strategy that has a built-in mathematical edge, and of course, some are better than others, some will fade off and stop working, others are curve fitted, so they won't really work in the future anyway. But if you're fortunate enough to find a strategy that has a built-in mathematical edge, and you're very clear on what the rules are, again, the back test will get you the rules. So if you're able to use those rules into the future, it becomes difficult to lose over the long run. Because again, you have something that has a built-in mathematical edge, just like a casino. So again, sometimes it's not that you're such a bad trader. It's not that the market is so difficult. It's not that there's so many distractions in a given day. It's just the fact that when you do give yourself the ability to devote time and energy to trading, you're doing it on such meaningless and low leverage tasks that the whole time you are just reinforcing the fact that the market has a mathematical and statistical edge against you. Instead, let's try to reverse that. Spend your time getting the leverage to work for you. Spend your time getting that mathematical edge to work in your favor, and then literally just do that like a broken record for the end of time. And if you do that, it's going to be difficult, very difficult for you to be a failure when it comes to trading. Now, how do I know that? I've worked with thousands of traders over the past couple of years. The ones who make the most money are the ones who do the thing the most. They're the ones who they have landed on a strategy that has a built-in mathematical edge. They are meticulous on following the rules, and they do that strategy that has a built-in mathematical edge more than everyone else. That is something that 100% of the people who are watching this video are capable of doing. And since you're capable of doing it, try to rearrange your focus on a given day of what you're focusing on when you have time to devote to the market. If you don't have a strategy that has a built-in mathematical edge, go get one. Everything else is much easier after that. So again, my name is Stephen Brooks. Thanks for watching the video. Again, a lot of the stuff on this channel is not so much about individual strategies, because individual strategies are not as important a lot of times as a lot of other things. But again, how can you put in the least amount of effort and get out the greatest amount of outcome? Well, again, it's really three things: finding a strategy that has a built-in mathematical edge, capitalizing on the rules of that strategy so that you're actually realizing the mathematical edge in the real world, and then doing that for the very, 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 very long term, because there will always be short-term volatility and short-term variance, but it's far less likely that volatility and variance happens into the future over the long run. If you do these things, I promise you, your trading is going to be way clearer. It's going to be way simpler. Your brain is going to be less foggy. You're going to be distracted by way less things. And my guess is your results are going to be tremendously better as well.